Imagine stumbling across a cartoon so bizarre that you wonder how it ever aired at all. From strange animation techniques to bizarre storylines, some shows push the boundaries of what children's television could be. These forgotten cartoons, once considered too odd or controversial, were either censored, buried, or vanished without a trace. Yet decades later, they remain intriguing, showing how cultural paranoia, bold experimentation, and sometimes even accidents shaped the entertainment of their time. Let's take a journey through 17 strange cartoons that slipped through the cracks of TV history and became cult oddities. Johnny Cipher in Dimension Zero, 1967. Johnny Cipher in Dimension Zero was a bizarre animated series that left viewers scratching their heads. A scientist named Johnny used his Dimension Zero belt to shrink down to subatomic size or travel into otherworldly dimensions. What could have been a regular science fiction adventure quickly became an unsettling experience. The animation was cheap and rushed, often reusing frames, and the storylines felt disjointed and surreal. Viewers found themselves witnessing strange alien worlds, cosmic creatures, and abstract nightmares that didn't quite make sense. It wasn't just confusing for the audience. The rushed production caused chaos behind the scenes, too. Voice actors had little direction, and animation was recycled to meet deadlines. Some parents complained that it was too frightening, and many stations pulled it from airwaves. Despite its short run and lack of merchandise, Johnny Cipher developed a cult following, with rare episodes surfacing decades later. Its unique mix of cheap animation and bizarre plotlines made it one of the strangest cartoons to ever grace TV. The Adventures of Mark Twain, 1985. The Adventures of Mark Twain was a stop-motion animated film that took a dark and eerie turn, leaving children and adults alike both confused and disturbed. Produced by Will Vinton, it followed the famous author Mark Twain as he embarked on surreal journeys through space and time. However, instead of the light-hearted humor one might expect from a story about Twain, the film delved into dark philosophical themes, especially the unsettling sequence of the mysterious stranger. In it, a faceless angel named Satan destroys a miniature world of clay people in a shocking and cruel manner. This film, with its haunting and eerie claymation, terrified children expecting a fun, adventurous ride. Many found the unsettling tone too much for young audiences, and the film faced criticism for being too bleak. Despite its box office flop, the film went on to be appreciated by animation students and those interested in experimental animation. Today, it is considered a dark masterpiece that explores themes of existential dread and moral ambiguity. The Banana Splits Adventure Hour, 1968. At first glance, the Banana Splits appeared to be a fun, light-hearted show for kids, featuring 4 costumed animal characters singing and performing zany antics. But beneath the surface, it was much darker than it seemed. The characters, Fleagle, Bingo, Drooper, and Snorky, were designed as oversized, weirdly animated mascots that performed in live action, creating a mix of slapstick comedy and unsettling movements. These strange behaviors of the characters, their exaggerated grins and chaotic dancing, freaked out many young viewers, leaving them with uneasy feelings. Meanwhile, the show's animated segments, particularly the adventure story Danger Island, raised concerns among parents due to its violent scenes and intense cliffhangers. Critics often mocked it for its surreal and psychedelic nature, but it quickly gained a cult following for its oddities. The show didn't last long, but its legacy continues as an odd relic of television history. Today, the Banana Splits is remembered as an eerie combination of kids' show and unsettling variety act. The Mighty Orbots, 1984. In the 1980s, when giant robots were all the rage, the Mighty Orbots dared to do something different. The show featured a quirky robots controlled by a young scientist named Rob Simmons, who formed a super powerful robot by combining all 6 Orbots. It was a visually striking show, with colorful characters and fast-paced animation, unlike its American competitors. However, the Mighty Orbots only lasted 13 episodes before disappearing. Why? A lawsuit from Tonka, makers of GoBots, led to the show being pulled from the airwaves. But whispers suggested the real reason was that the show was too different, too stylized, and too influenced by Japanese anime for American tastes. Fans who watched it remember the show's unique blend of humor and action, with characters like the shy Boo and flirty Ono. Though its toys were never released and merchandising opportunities were halted, the mighty Orbots has gained a cult following in recent years. It was simply ahead of its time. Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp, 1970. Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp was a strange and unique show that turned ordinary spy thrillers on their head. In this live-action series, trained chimpanzees dressed in costumes and acted out spy adventures, while human voice actors dubbed their lines. On the surface, it seemed like a fun and quirky parody of Get Smart, but the reality was far stranger. Some children found the sight of chimps performing as secret agents entertaining, but others were disturbed by the forced movements and glassy-eyed expressions of the animals. Behind the scenes, the production was chaotic. The chimpanzees were difficult to manage, and the show faced numerous production delays and rising costs. Despite its bizarre premise, Lancelot Link Secret Chimp managed to last for 2 seasons, but it was ultimately buried in syndication. Today, it stands as an odd relic of TV's attempt to capitalize on the spy craze. Its strange mix of humor, animal cruelty, and surreal moments gives it a strange charm, but it's a reminder of television's wild experimentation.
Fantastic Planet, La Planète Sauvage, 1973. Fantastic Planet is a surreal and visually captivating animated film that left a lasting impression on anyone who encountered it. A French-Czechoslovakian co-production, this film depicts a future where tiny humans, known as ohms, are enslaved by towering blue aliens called drogs. The animation is hypnotic, with slow, dreamlike movements and bizarre, otherworldly landscapes that resemble living paintings. The tone of the film is equal parts science fiction and nightmare, unsettling viewers with its strange imagery and allegories about oppression, revolution, and social control. When it first aired on American television, many parents found the content disturbing and too strange for children, and some stations outright banned it. Despite its allegorical depth and artistic innovation, the film struggled to find mainstream distribution. It wasn't until years later that Fantastic Planet earned its place as a cult classic, praised by animation enthusiasts and scholars for its boldness and subversive storytelling. Today, it stands as a haunting reminder of how animation can challenge conventions and provoke deep thought, but also unsettle its audience. Rocket Robin Hood, 1966. Imagine Robin Hood in outer space, stealing from intergalactic tyrants and giving to the oppressed across the cosmos. That was the pitch behind Rocket Robin Hood. A Canadian animated series, it reimagined the legendary outlaw as a futuristic hero battling space villains. While the concept sounded daring and educational, the execution was bizarre. The animation was low budget with recycled frames, strange backgrounds, and awkward pacing that made the show feel unnervingly hypnotic. The visual quality left much to be desired, and the storylines often felt disjointed. Viewers tuning in for adventure found themselves in strange, psychedelic worlds that didn't always make sense. Behind the scenes, the show was plagued by tight deadlines, budget cuts, and a rushed production schedule. Yet it somehow managed to stay on air for multiple seasons, although the show's awkward tone and choppy animation left it widely mocked. As time passed, Rocket Robin Hood gained a reputation as a cult curiosity. Today, it's remembered not for its educational value, but for the way it warped a beloved legend into a bizarre space odyssey. Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, 1972. Wait Till Your Father Gets Home was an adult-oriented animated sitcom that pushed boundaries in a way that no one expected from the creators of Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones. It followed Harry Bowl, a middle-class father constantly at odds with his counterculture children and nosy neighbors. The show tackled issues like Vietnam, civil rights, and generational divides, making it controversial and even disturbing for its time.
Parents were outraged by its bold satire, which felt too real and too critical of the social and political climate. The network received angry letters demanding its cancellation, especially after a particularly inflammatory episode satirizing extremist patriot groups. Though it survived 3 seasons, the show was buried in syndication afterward and never gained the same nostalgic status as its more light-hearted counterparts. Today, it's remembered as a precursor to shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy, ahead of its time, but ultimately too strange and politically charged for mainstream television. The Osmans in Outer Space, 1972. The Osmans in Outer Space was a peculiar attempt to cash in on the popularity of the Osmond family in the early 70s. The show imagined the musical family as intergalactic adventurers who traveled the cosmos battling aliens, solving cosmic problems, and singing bubblegum pop numbers. The animation was rushed and cheap, with a premise that critics and audiences found laughable. Some claimed that the villains resembled real-world political figures, and rumors spread about hidden subliminal messages in the music tracks. The show was canceled after just 1 season, but not before it became infamous for being strange, even disturbing for a children's cartoon. The Osmonds themselves reportedly hated the show, with Donny Osmond admitting that he barely remembered recording the episodes. For years, it was thought to be buried, but bootleg copies surfaced, surprising new generations with its bizarre mix of campy weirdness and cosmic nonsense. The Beanie and Cecil Show, 1962. Created by the legendary Bob Clampett, The Beanie and Cecil Show was an adventure comedy about a boy named Beanie and his dim-witted sea serpent friend Cecil. While the show was meant to be lighthearted and fun, it contained hidden political satire that raised eyebrows in early 60s America. Characters like Dishonest John were caricatures of Cold War paranoia, and several episodes poked fun at censorship and television executives. Many parents found the show confusing for children, with its sly, subversive humor going over the heads of young viewers. Behind the scenes, Clampett often clashed with ABC's censors, and many episodes were delayed or rewritten due to their controversial content. The show's political edge and the occasional rejection of storyboards became its trademark, earning it a reputation as one of television's earliest examples of animation as a medium for adult-oriented humor. It's now remembered as an experimental show that pushed boundaries in ways that were ahead of its time. The Point, 1971. The Point, created by musician Harry Nilsson, was a psychedelic children's special that became one of the strangest and most unsettling animated features of its time. It followed a boy named Oblio, the only round-headed person in a land where everyone else had pointed heads. Sent into exile with his dog, Arrow, Oblio embarks on a surreal journey filled with strange creatures and lessons about conformity and alienation. The special's dreamy, almost nightmarish quality left many children confused and even frightened. The narration, originally by Dustin Hoffman and later by Ringo Starr in reruns, added to its otherworldly vibe. Parents were unsure about its meaning, and some even accused it of being a critique of counterculture movements or Cold War conformity. The special was a commercial failure and was pulled from airwaves, only to gain cult status years later as a psychedelic masterpiece that experimented with themes of nonconformity and identity. Clutch Cargo, 1959. Clutch Cargo is a cartoon that became infamous for its deeply unsettling animation technique. In a cost-saving move, the show's creators used a method called synchrovox that involved placing live-action lips over still drawings. The result was a creepy, almost unnatural look that many viewers found deeply unsettling. The show featured Clutch Cargo, a rugged pilot, and his young sidekick as they embarked on adventure-filled journeys. While the premise seemed innocent enough, the bizarre animation left children and parents feeling uncomfortable. The animation was cheap and quick, but the odd, haunting lip movements created an uncanny valley effect that terrified some viewers. Despite the eerie quality of the show, Clutch Cargo became a strange cultural phenomenon. Today, it's a cult classic among animation historians who appreciate it as one of the earliest examples of how low-budget experimentation can result in something unintentionally bizarre. Its legacy endures as a curious and haunting example of animation gone awry. The Barkleys, 1972. The Barkleys was an animated sitcom that aimed to replicate the success of the Flintstones, but it failed to capture the magic. The show followed an all-dog family living a human-like suburban life, complete with workplace drama and rebellious teenagers. While the concept seemed innocent enough, the show was more about heavy-handed morals than fun. Each episode ended with a preachy lesson, usually delivered by the father, Ari Barkley, in a gruff, lecturing tone. This caused many children to tune out and adults to roll their eyes. The real controversy arose when some parents accused the show of sneaking in social commentary about class struggles and the struggles of modern families. Episodes about workplace disputes and teenage rebellion hit too close to home for conservative viewers, and network censors demanded storylines be rewritten. Despite the issues behind the scenes, the show was canceled after just one season. Today, The Barkleys is remembered as a strange attempt to capture the Flintstones' success, but it lacked the timeless appeal and charm. The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, 1968. In a bold experiment for its time, The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn blended live action with animation, placing 3 real actors, Huck, Tom, and Becky, into a fully animated world. The series, produced by Hanna-Barbera, saw the trio embarking on wild adventures, ranging from Arabian Nights fantasies to futuristic landscapes. However, the fusion of live action and animation was unsettling for many viewers, especially the children who found the human actors awkwardly out of place in the exaggerated cartoon world. The animation itself, while ambitious, was often chaotic, leading to a sense that the show was unfinished or rushed. The show was expensive and time-consuming to produce, and as a result, NBC pulled the plug after just one season. Though it wasn't a success in its day, The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is now remembered as a pioneering attempt at blending live action with animation, foreshadowing later techniques used in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Wizards, 1977. Wizards, directed by Ralph Bakshi, was an adult-oriented animated feature that blended fantasy, science fiction, and political commentary. Set in a post-apocalyptic world where magic and technology collide, the film follows the story of 2 wizards, one good and the other evil, battling for control of the world. The animation was highly stylized with a mix of traditional techniques and rotoscoping, which made it visually striking and unique. The film's darker themes, such as war, prejudice, and the effects of technology on humanity, were ahead of their time and left many viewers uneasy. Though it was considered groundbreaking for its adult themes and mature storytelling, Wizards wasn't a commercial success upon release. It gained a cult following over the years, praised for its daring narrative and visuals. Today, it's regarded as a strange yet visionary work that showcased Bakshi's ability to combine art with social commentary, challenging conventional animation norms. The Phantom Tollbooth, 1970. The Phantom Tollbooth is an animated film that stood out for its surreal and whimsical narrative. Based on the beloved children's book by Norton Juster, the film follows a young boy named Milo who journeys through a magical world filled with strange creatures and allegorical lessons. The tone was quirky, featuring bizarre characters like the Humbug and a princess named Rhyme and Reason. Despite being a children's film, it often strayed into complex, thought-provoking themes about knowledge, growth, and the absurdity of life. The animation itself was colorful but odd, with a style that felt more sophisticated than typical Saturday morning cartoons. The Phantom Tollbooth struggled at the box office, and its weird, intellectual nature may have been too much for younger audiences at the time. Over the years, however, it's found a dedicated audience and is now considered a cult classic, remembered for its unique mix of whimsy and wisdom.
Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse, 1960. The Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse was a quirky animated series that followed the adventures of 2 anthropomorphic animals, a brave, dashing cat named Courageous Cat and his tiny sidekick, Minute Mouse. Together, they fought crime, foiled villains, and protected the city. The show, which was a parody of superhero cartoons, was known for its cheap animation and low budget. However, the most bizarre aspect of the series was its outlandish and surreal tone.
While the animation was simple, the plots were often strange and unpredictable, with bizarre villains and unusual scenarios. Despite the oddness of the show, it did manage to entertain some viewers, particularly children, with its blend of humor and action. It didn't last long, mainly due to the limitations of its budget and the increasingly competitive landscape of children's television. However, Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse has since gained recognition as a fun, albeit peculiar piece of television history. From eerie animation techniques to outlandish storylines, these forgotten cartoons remind us that not all shows are destined for nostalgia. Some were too strange, too ahead of their time, or just too controversial to survive. Yet, through bootlegs, rediscovery, and cult followings, these oddities have found new life. They were more than just entertainment. They were experiments, reflections of their era's cultural fears, and sometimes simply accidents too bizarre to last. So, next time you stumble upon a forgotten gem, remember, strange things often leave the most lasting impressions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more quirky discoveries.